came back across that bridge, they pursued us all the way back to Brown Chapel Church. And getting back to that church that day, I can remember, we sat in the back part of Brown Chapel Church, and I had prayer. I read scripture, and while in that sanctuary that night, the telephone rang in the pastor's study. It was Dr. King. He called me, and so he said, I understand you had a little trouble out there in Selma. He was in Atlanta. He was not in Selma when that violence took place. And I guess he was being facetious. I said, Dr. King, that's an understatement you're making. We had a lot of trouble here. And he said that he had sent a call over the nation to invite ministers who would come to Selma to lend their assistance to the people of Selma. And while in that sanctuary that night, about 9 o'clock, a group had chartered a plane from New Jersey, had flown to Montgomery, Alabama, and got a bus, came to Selma, walked in that church that night, and said, we have seen on the television screen what happened across that bridge today, and we have come now to lend our bodies and our assistance to the people of Selma. That was one of the most exhilarating and inspiring moments of that day.
All right. Just want to say welcome. Man, Brother Marshall, I can't think of a better way to kind of start tonight. First of all, this is our last one.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the end of our Black History series with our Jubilee weekend coming in. You know, Jubilee weekend starts this weekend, and what better way to put someone in the limelight that is descendant of someone that played a major role in this community with us, with the Blacks being able to be who they are today.
Oh yes, and, I'm excited just to have a friend and brother who's our guest for tonight, and then also, you know, he's the grandson of someone who was near and dear to my heart as my pastor, my spiritual father, and so I'm excited to pay honor to him and the life that he lived as well too, man. And so I'm excited for tonight. So I guess
super excited.
We just want to just remind everybody to please make sure that you are following our Facebook and Instagram at Omega Chi 1957, and our YouTube channel at Omega Chi 1957. And of course, we're excited to go ahead and I'll go ahead and bring him in. So I want to say good evening to Mr. Alan Reese. Alan, how you doing, brother?
What's going on? What's going on, brother?
Alan, can you hear us? Oh no. Okay, all right, no problem. We're gonna try to bring him on. I think Alan's possibly experiencing some technical difficulties, and that's okay though, because this is some good information, and we're gonna go ahead and get him in one more second. Alan, can you hear us, brother?
I don't have any sound.
Really?
We can hear you, but you can't hear us.
We hear you really good. Okay, that's all good. All right, that's all right. Alan, why don't you leave the studio and try to come back, and then we'll try to go. We'll in the meantime, we prepared for this.
I can't hear you.
It's okay.
Can you hear me?
We hear you.
We can't hear you.
How the last one we're gonna have all this?
Hey, it happens.
But it's all good. It's all good. And so while we're waiting on Alan to try to get squared away tonight, one of the things that he's going to come and talk with us about is the life and legacy of Dr. Frederick D. Reese. Dr. Reese is one of those people that he is a giant among giants. He is a legacy among legacies, and so I am excited that he's here, that he's going to be with us tonight. Let me try him one more time. All right, Alan, can you hear us? You still can't hear us. Okay. Wow. That's weird.
It is.
Okay, what about now? Is it still, you still can't hear us?
I think it may be something on his end.
Probably so. It's probably so. In the meantime, what I do want to do is because he's going to try to come back. In the meantime, one of the things that Dr. Reese is known for I think it's a good time to kind of talk about this was people know him as the person who crossed the bridge on Bloody Sunday, but we'll get to that. But he was also very instrumental in the Teachers March. And he was also very instrumental in the Dallas County Voters League. You're nodding your head, so can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay, all right.
There we go. We're good to go.
Okay.
I'm like, yeah, we can't do this on the last one, and we got
I know. That's all right.
I was like, man, but listen, I'm excited. Just to kind of just talk a little bit. First and foremost, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are first and foremost before we get into tonight?
Okay, well, of course, my name is Alan Reese, and I am the grandson of Frederick, the late Frederick D. Reese, Reverend Doctor Frederick D. Reese. He was a civil rights icon, but I am also the CEO of the Frederick D. Reese Foundation, and also Reese Enterprises. Through Reese Enterprise and the foundation, we released a book called Selma Self-Sacrifice that my grandfather was able to finish before he went to be with the Lord. In the foundation, we do different things: back to school drive scholarships, HBCU scholarships, tours for tots. We do different things in the community. So that's what Alan Reese is doing these days.
That's right. And so the next question that just kind of want to get into while we're here, and I know you since your grandfather, since the start of your the FD Reese Foundation, and also since his passing years ago, you've been a huge advocate in making sure his story gets out there.
That's right.
You've been a huge advocate in making sure people know who he is. And so, just for the viewers that's out there, can you just tell them a little bit about who he is and why he is so significant when it comes to the Selma movement in 1965?
The significance of FD Reese is FD Reese was the leader of two important groups in Selma. He was the leader of the Dallas County Voters League. He became the president of that group in 1962, 63, when Mr. Sam Boynton, after he got sick. And he was also the president of the Selma City Teachers Association. And through that association, he led the first World All Teachers March. He told the teachers, how can you truly teach citizenship when you're not a first-class citizen yourself, when you don't have the right to vote? But in 1965, late 1964, the Courageous Eight, which is the board of directors of the Dallas County Voters League, we don't put emphasis on that. They were the board of directors of the Dallas County Voters League. They got together and formed a letter to invite Dr. King to Selma, which, with my grandfather's John Hancock as the president, made that letter official. So that's a little bit about my grandfather, not to go too deep, into who he is. So that's just hitting the surface.
Absolutely, man. Listen, that's the thing that sometimes people don't necessarily give him credit for, especially now with we're in Black History Month. We're stepping into the anniversary of the Bloody Sunday event. But before we get to that, one of the things you talked about was the Teachers March, and I found a video that I actually would love to play for a minute that sort of kind of tells in his own words of the situation of the Teachers March and why it was so significant. I want to go ahead and play that really quickly.
In January the 22nd, I guess the Lord had me in the right place, the right time, with the right commitment. I was president of the Selma City Teachers Association. And then we had agreed that, and I persuaded teachers for the first time to engage in a teachers march. And so we agreed, after they signed their names to a petition, that we were going to march as a teacher group. And so on January 22nd, we met at Clark Elementary School here, which was the school where I attended the first grade through the sixth grade. We met upstairs, and my we marched double file. My partner was my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade science teacher. His name was Mr. A.J. Durgan. He was the incoming president of the Selma City Teachers Association. And we led that march, teachers, for the first time in the United States, coming down the steps of Clark Elementary School, down Lawn Street, down to Alabama Avenue, down to the courthouse. Teachers for the first time. Getting down to the county courthouse, that was standing next to the steps, the superintendent of education, the chairman of the board of education, to persuade me, because I was a teacher, to take the teachers back to the school because we had made a point, and that no longer should we try to pursue that right from that particular point. And I told them we had a right to be at the county courthouse. It was our courthouse. We were not backing down from our right to be there. And I asked the superintendent and the chairman of the board, who signed my check, to step aside. We went up those steps. Jim Clark had his deputies across the door, and he indicated that we were trying to make a mockery out of his courthouse. And we indicated to him that that was our courthouse also. He gave us 1 minute to move off of those steps. At the expiration of that minute, he took the billy club and jabbed us down the steps on the sidewalk. And my partner, Mr. A.J. Durgan, who, as I said, was my teacher, he was not quite used to that stuff like I was. And he asked me on the ground, he said, "What shall we do?" I said, "We are going back." He said, Yeah. And so we went back the second time. We jabbed down the steps after a minute, and he asked me the same question. I gave him the same answer, and he gave me the same response. The third time, when I really was trying to get all the teachers arrested, because teachers were not aware of the tremendous influence. They were the largest black professional group here in Dallas County. And so after going back the third time, he said, "If you don't go up these steps, Jim Clark," said, "we're going to arrest you." I said to myself, "Exactly what I want you to do." And so at the about 45 seconds before that minute expired, someone on the inside of the courthouse came and pulled him on the inside of the courthouse door and said, I didn't go in there with him, but I can imagine what they told him. "For goodness sake, don't arrest those teachers."
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Wow, wow, wow. And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to play as far as talk that a little bit because, well, first thing, Brother Marshall is actually educated himself here in the Dallas County area. And so the Teachers March, did you know about the Teachers March, Bro Marshall?
I actually, and man, this is actually a divine situation. Me and my students had actually been watching that series. So for the past 2 weeks, we have been diving into that, and they actually got to see how that's kind of like my second time seeing the video in the past couple of weeks, and the students actually got to see how they were treated. And education is so kind of umbrella. They don't, you don't get to see the raw material, what really happened. And to see 8th graders watch students walk over the bridge and see people raise sticks and actually blood running down, even though we're virtual, I could feel cold chills through a screen. Like kids were like, wow, like that really happened. Because even in those moments, you only hear a story.
Mm-hmm.
You've never seen the material or visuals that actually go with it. And to be 12, 13 years old, they got to see it for these past weeks or so. Like, wow, like this is really brutal. So that's why, they know it's called Bloody Sunday, but now they know really, really why it's called Bloody Sunday.
And I think it's important to acknowledge the roles, because the important thing I love about why it's important that we recognize people like Dr. Reese and Selma-born people, is because they spend so much time focusing on Martin Luther King and John Lewis, as they should, because they put in work. But we can't also I think there is something to a young kid, like to your students, when they see Selma heroes, when
That's
they
right.
see people who are from Selma,
That's right.
and just when your grandfather used to tell you all these stories, Alan, growing up, what was that like for you?
Man,
When you would hear about his involvement.
it was great, especially as I began to grow and live life. I really start understanding what the significance of his leadership was, and what really gets me about the Teachers March. I'm gonna go back to that, is that he was leading his own teacher. Think about it. He was leading his teacher, his 19th, 11th grade science teacher. So to be able to have that type of influence, that your teacher, who's probably literally 20 some 30 years older than you, is willing to walk beside or behind you and to do something to make a change, and also listen to your direction. You have to be a different type of leader for someone to do that, man. And that really got me. But also, and like I tell a lot of people, FD was Kaepernick before Kaepernick. And a lot of people don't see, he told the chairman of the board of the education board in Selma, step aside. Remember, FD Reese lost his job for 3 years. He worked at Bush Hall because he was fired, because he took those teachers to march. So he gave up his profession, which he had a son at home, he had a wife at home, he had a daughter, a son, and his oldest son that was dying of muscular dystrophy. But he still, as a leader, saying, look, I know I got to be standing the gap. I know I got to do what's right. Even losing my job and putting my family, the comfort of my family, the way they live in jeopardy. You got to be wired different to be able to do that. And I think when you listen to him talk and you describe him as he's describing that Teachers March, you really got to listen to it and put emphasis on what he's saying about leadership, about laying it all on the line, all of it on the line for what is right and what is just due, man. And I think we got to really look at FD Reese's leadership and say, man, what a man, what a man.
His leadership was really a model.
Yeah.
When you look at activists, politicians, people just in public leadership. And so that sort of kind of goes into what you just mentioned before about his work in the Dallas County Voters League. Um, can you also sort of speak on his involvement with that, and why it is important that people know who the Dallas County Voters League is, and why were they so significant before leading into what we know as Bloody Sunday?
Yeah, see, a lot of people, and this is and I would say my issue with the whole story of the movement. We tend to say Courageous 8, but do not mention the Dallas County Voters League because it seems like that Selma needed saving. And what I mean by that is that when you think of the SCLC, you think of Dr. King, the president. You think of Ralph Abernathy, I think he was the secretary. You think of Joseph E. Lowry as the vice president. And I think Andy Young was the treasurer. And then when you think about SNCC, you think about John Lewis as president. And I think you have Dr. Lafayette somewhere in that mix as part of the board of directors. So you see the organization, you see them organized. But we tend to say Courageous 8 with Selma leaders, and we don't mention the Dallas County Voters League. But I think if we start putting emphasis on the Dallas County Voters League, you see the organized, they were organized in this organization, and they should be thought of just as you think as the SCLC and SNCC. So I really think the nation has to put emphasis and teach the world about the Dallas County Voters League, because without that group, without Mr. Adams starting in the early 1920s, without Mr. and Mrs. Boynton and Marie Foster and Reverend Hunter and all those people, and L.L. Anderson and Chestnut, without them forming the Dallas County Voters League, you don't have the voting rights movement coming through Selma. Without them reviving it, you don't have it. You know, it's even before F.D. Reese. You know, when you look at the history of the Dallas County Voters League, how they just slowly, and I like to say slow cook because I like to put, you know, food on the grill and slow cook it. How they slow cooked that movement all the way from the 1920s all the way up to 1965. And see, when you don't teach this, you just think that, oh, Dr. King came to Selma and everything was okay. No, Selma was the perfect place because of SNCC came and educated people in the early 1960s, but also the Dallas County Voters League was already in the community, and the community had their respect. So we got to put some respect on the Dallas County Voters League as an organization, because before 1965, they were the leaders in the community. They really were.
Yeah, that's definitely like not to take anything from anyone that played a significance, but it's definitely, you know, Selma had their own leaders before anything ever derived. You know, like I'm a history teacher, so you know I've looked into the depths of it a little bit, and people were already making moves. Like the women, believe it or not, we've had several women on this series. Women were making more moves than men were during that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to think about it, women and children, like even before the movement really derived, the students, children were doing more than the adults were. So you have children, then you look at the women, then when the men really fell into place, it was like, okay, you have to put respect on what's going on. You know, people didn't respect women and children, but they stepped forward and did what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the significance of Martin Luther King, he was already a name. So he was kind of put the spotlight on Selma, but things were already going on in Selma prior to that. You know, even with John Lewis, like John, you know, even if you watch the movie of Selma, John Lewis made a statement in the movie of Selma, and a lot of people don't pay attention to it. He got mad because everybody was like Dr. King this and Dr. King that. And he was like, we've already been here. Like he made that statement in the movie where, you know, it's in the script where he says, we've already been here. Why aren't people rallying behind us as if we haven't been doing anything?
I can put some emphasis on that if you want me to.
Right. So do your thing.
I can fill in the blanks for you what happened. See, what people don't want to talk about, and it's okay, it's history. We all disagree, you know, in the manner. But the one thing I can, at the end of the day, they came together for the objective. And the objective was for the voting rights movement. But what happened, what a lot of people don't know, F.D. Reese was booed in Brown Chapel because they had decided to bring Dr. King to Selma. But what happened was, see, the SNCC was all about voter education. Mm-hmm. You know, the mass means was about, look, we're going to show you how to take the test. But what voter suppression was doing, what racist was doing, and evenness was doing, when we go and take the test and what they was teaching, they would change the test. So what F.D. Reese, and I'm going to be honest with you, Mr. Doyle, the vice president of the Dallas County Voters League, and Mr. Gittles League, what they understood was that we have to do something else because it's not working. So we know Dr. King them they have more of a national funding, attention. So what do we have to do? We got to change our approach. And it's okay, I understand. It's okay for people to see the disagreement in these men, but see them come together for the greater cause. But the truth is, SNCC did not want the SCLC in Selma, Alabama.
You talking now?
And see, that's what we don't do. And see, this is why the Dallas County Voters League is so important. See, Mr. Gittles League and Mr. Doyle, they got behind F.D. Reese. If you go and read Chestnut, I call him Goat Chestnut because he is the GOAT when it comes to the movement as a lawyer. Chestnut is the GOAT. But if you read his book,
just to be clear, we want everybody to know you're talking about attorney J.L. Chestnut.
Yeah, J.L. Chestnut.
Just to make sure we're clear, because make sure everybody knows who we're talking about.
J.L. Chestnut. If you read his book, Even some of the Dallas County Voters League members did not want the FD Reese, Mr. Doyle, and Gildersleeve to partner with the Dallas County, the partners with the SCLC. What a lot of people don't know, what happened was the Dallas County Voters League incorporated with the SCLC. See, the SCLC did not have a chapter in Selma, Alabama. So they had to be invited to come to Selma and be a part of a local group to be effective. So it could be set in stone so it won't be any disagreement. So a lot of people didn't want him there. FD Reese stood up at Brown Chapel and said, look, Dr. King is coming to Selma, and they booed him. And it's on the documentary that we are filming now. We have people who were there, and they were saying that FD Reese said they listened to every leader, every person come up and talk about him and ridicule him for inviting the SCLC. And they said FD Reese listened to him. And when he finished, he stood up and said, Dr. King will be here in Selma. Now let's stand and sing, we shall overcome. Because he had foresight. As a leader, you have to have foresight. Sometimes people don't understand around you what you're trying to do and what you see. But Gildersleeve and Doyle did. But Gildersleeve and Doyle had weight in the community. See, a lot of people don't know that these cats didn't play. Because my grandfather was the youngest one. But they had weight. So Chestnut put it in his book. Dr. Reese agreed that they should incorporate upon the SCLC, and then with Doyle and Gildersleeve with their mouth and they standing behind FD Reese signed the agreement with the SCLC because he was president. See, it's so much more to this history.
It is.
And that's crazy because even though Alabama has their own curriculum, that alone, the voters' rights, civil rights movement should be a part of Selma's curriculum.
That's right.
It's so much raw material. Like it's stuff. I'm not from Selma, but I've been here long enough. That knowledge you just given, like you just gave, like people need to know that, because everybody sees the finished portrait.
That's
they
right.
don't see the work that it took to get there, and everyone needs to see that. That's
right.
The most important thing about history is knowing the backstories.
That's right.
Of the actual fact, because a lot of times when you open up a history book, it just says in 1964 ... It doesn't say fact. This happened on this day. This happened on this day. They got together. They had a meeting. They had a disagreement. These people didn't want that. Nobody knows the back facts. And believe it or not, as a history teacher, those are more important than the actual facts of the date that it happened to me.
Man, I can share so
That's
much.
why it's so important. That's why it's so important to get this truth out there. Like, in places like Alabama and Georgia, Mississippi, and the South, where you have white people controlling our history.
That's right.
It's not going to get out there.
And they control the visual. The visual. They control the visual. But man, what you just made a good point. And like I said, I have my grandfather's collection. And I have letters and documents from the early 60s. And what people don't realize, what Dallas County Voters League were doing, man, what they were doing in Selma, it's just like the people that was marching, they were losing their jobs because they were marching. Then what Selma was doing, they would not give them welfare. So I have documents that my grandfather, Dallas County Voters League, was talking to the vice president at the time. Then the Dallas County Voters League created a group. And what they were doing, they were going around Selma, and people was filling out the application, how many kids they had, what was their rent, their food, and it's on the documents. It'll break down each person, what was going on in their household, and they were denied welfare. So the Dallas County Voters League got their own application, created it to show evidence. Look, this is what's going on in Selma because these people are trying to have the right to vote. See, it's so much more than what the story they have put out there.
It wasn't even just welfare, too. It wasn't even just welfare. They were denied housing. They couldn't get houses. They could not get they couldn't even get a loan. They weren't able to open up bank accounts. That's why I want to shout out. I want to take a second and plug Black Voters Matter, Latasha Brown and Cliff Albright from Selma, because they lived in Selma, but a lot of people don't remember this. But when Cliff and Latasha, when they were in Selma, when that was still going on, when I was a kid, you're talking about like 1997, 98, 99, when they were still denying Black people mortgages and loans. Cliff, his wife April, and Latasha started a Black-owned mortgage company and a Black-owned real estate company to provide loans and also to get Black people in houses, because the same thing that Dr. Reese and they were fighting for years ago was still happening today, and that stuff is still happening today.
And that's the problem. And that's the problem, honestly. Like the ultimate problem of it all, and Mr. Reese, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off because I think I'm a little late. So I caught you late. I'm sorry, I apologize. But the ultimate problem is, and it's really not even us, the people who are over these history archives, the history books, they try to even make slavery and civil rights movement seem like it was so long ago.
And it's not.
It's not. And that's the problem. And even us as a culture have to understand, bro, that was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That was really yesterday.
Yesterday,
like, right. Real, like people are still living like the last living slave. Like, you know, I had to tell someone the other day, Texas didn't end slavery until 1971.
It hasn't really been a full 100 years in this country's 400-year inception.
That's right.
And so it's still fresh. People don't get it. It's so fresh.
Y'all 100% right. I 100% agree.
And I think that's definitely was something that Dr. Reese was fighting for, and he was fighting against. And so I'm so glad you mentioned about that, because Selma is so much more than what happened on the bridge.
That's right.
And I say that all the time. And you know, Alan, you and I, we work with Selma Matters, and so one of the biggest things we've been dealing with is the whole fight of the bridge. So we have to try to let people know that there was so much that went down besides the bridge before Martin Luther King came to Selma, and even after Martin Luther King comes to Selma. There's so much that you really have to consider. And so yeah, man, this is amazing.
Yeah, but college, you gotta understand, man, you what we lack, and I'm gonna be strong in my words right here. When we it's not white, when it's not white folks,
since the last one, you may as well tell it.
One thing about white people, they know they don't mind. They have their history lined up. You know, the Declaration of Independence created 1776. They know the Constitution. They know everything. Who wrote it? Who did it? When they wrote it? And why they wrote it. But it's one thing about us as a culture. We tend to want to keep certain history in our culture to the back burner. When we have the platform, we tend to try to say, all eyes on me. It was all me. And what has happened is a lot of leaders that have had the platform over the years have decided not to tell the true story. I don't know if it's monetary game, what is it? Is it just want to be the man, this and that? But it's in our culture. We tend to not teach our own history. And that has to change. And that's one thing why I'm in the place I'm in now, because I was that young boy in the 5th grade at Cedar Grove Elementary in Atlanta, Georgia, with Ellenwood, Georgia, saw my grandfather's picture in a book without a name, and no one believed, and that was my grandfather. So that put a burn in me to say, you know what? I know it's more F.D. Reese's out there who've made great contributions to the movement or to different causes that we don't know. And sometimes it's not because the white man hasn't told the story. Sometimes it's us who want to be the man and only want people to know my story. Yeah, I talk about F.D. Reese, but guess what? I talk about the Dallas County Voters League too. And I promise the more attraction that I get about my grandfather, I want to tell the whole story. I want to talk about Marie Foster. I want to talk about L.L. Anderson. I want to talk about Gildersleeve. I want to talk about Mr. Doyle, because all these people deserve their due credit, man. And it's time out. It's time for us to be inclusive with this history. And that's my goal, Collins. That's my goal, man.
Listen, I agree 1000%. I had to take it in for a minute because it just it it really just makes you sit back and just wonder and just wonder why is it that we struggle so much? We're already struggling against white people, but yet we struggle against each other when it comes to our history, when it comes to making sure our history is told correctly. The movie Selma Lord Selma did not tell the story correctly. The
Mm-hmm.
movie Selma does not tell the story all the way
That's right.
correctly.
That's right.
And so it was really just a moment for me after the 50th. I realized that it's really going to be up to us
That's right.
to make sure that we tell the story correctly. It's going to be up to educators like Brother Marshall to make sure that
Right.
you're telling the story correctly in your classrooms so
Mm-hmm.
that your
Right.
scholars can know the difference. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to be up to people, other people in the community. Really, we are going to have to be the generation to be those change
Yeah.
agents to really tell our stories the right way in an era that is not only being whitewashed but black bashed if
That's
it's
right.
True.
not involved in it. And so we have our work cut out for us.
That's right. Well,
We
we
do.
got the batons. We just told them hand it here. We just gonna keep going.
Oh
You
yeah.
I,
know,
Oh yeah.
that's just what it is. You know.
I, I think with the history of Selma and me and Linda Lowry kind of pinpointed it in one of our previous conversation. Selma could have a series
Mm-hmm.
like Roots have.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own portion because if you look at the movie Roots, okay, you go from Kemp's version to his daughter's version
Mm-hmm.
to his grandson's version, all the way down through. The history of Selma could be just like that. It's got to be 40, 50 people that have a 10-minute slot. They got 10 minutes and they can tell their version
That's
on
right.
that clip or whatever to tell what happened, how they viewed it, because everyone had a purpose in this. It's people, it's grandchildren. Children that I'm teaching now don't know the backstory of some of their great grandmothers, their
That's
great
right.
uncles.
Dr.
They don't
Reese,
even
Dr. Reese
they,
is just one side.
right. They don't even know
Reese
that
is
some
so
of their
true.
relatives played a major part, and they just
Mm-hmm.
going through school as I'm just here to get an education. No, you come from a
Right.
legacy of people
That's
that
right.
built a foundation for us to be successful in a world where we are still not accepted.
Man, I'm glad you said that. I used to go back and forth with my grandfather. I'm gonna give you a little behind the scenes of the conversations we used to have. I used to tell my granddad, because he was the type of person, man, it don't matter. They don't give me my justice. They don't really share what I did. It don't matter long as I know what I did and God know what I did, and that's it. And I used to tell my granddad that's not enough for me. I said, because you was a fatherless man, you didn't know your father. I said, think about how many young people that your story can teach to because they are fatherless. Look what you did with us. You was in a house with your mother and your two sisters, and you was the youngest. And you was a boy and you didn't know your father, but look at the man you became. I said, so your story is bigger than you, than what you feel that how you feel about you don't get your just due. I said, it's not about you at the end of the day, because your life can teach so many people by knowing your story. And so we used to go kind of back and forth on that. And then finally he just gave in. He said, well, Alan, I tell you this. Since you've been asking for it, you are in charge of my legacy. Whatever you feel you need to do, you do it. And I said, okay, that's right. Because I know it's bigger than FD Reese. It's bigger than him. He's just a piece.
And that type of humility, it wasn't just him. There were so many other people who did not get a chance to bestow their legacies and their foundations, and they didn't get the opportunity to bestow that to their legacy, to their lineage. Some of the people's history are dead
That's
out
right.
in Lorenzo Harrison Cemetery out in East Selma.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to try to keep that history alive. He was
Right.
such a man, he was so Dr. Reese was so much. I remember in 2008, I got a chance to drive him around in the Jubilee parade.
Okay.
And he essentially he was asking me about how college was, but then he essentially pretty much gave an entire story of how he compared his role in the movement into how that should uh, play a part in the things that I do with college, not realizing how relevant it was until I became an adult and I think about that
That's
conversation
right.
about how he, you really have to humble yourself, but you also have to realize when you have to stand for what's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm learning that nonviolence isn't always peace.
That's right.
Nonviolence is forcefulness.
Mm-hmm.
Nonviolence is it is pressure. And Dr. Reese was the person who knew how to apply pressure, but he was so humble that he was not trying to get that glory
That's
with it.
right. Well,
That was amazing about him that I always loved and appreciated. And I remember he tells the story. We probably won't have time to play it, but he tells the story of what happened on the bridge on Bloody Sunday
mm-hmm.
meticulously,
He does.
word for word. Every time he told that story, he said that all the time.
And and that's to a point to where um we have to make sure that the legacy never dies,
Mhm.
because so many people are trying to whitewash history, Black history.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
like even within Black History Month, we heard a man tell a story last week, or Tuesday rather. Tuesday. I mean, not Tuesday, but last Thursday, that when it was Black History Week, when it was National Negro Week, all the white people got up and walked out of the assembly. And it was 1972, I think, or 73, like that. So we have to, overcome so much trauma. The trauma of being Black in America is
Mhm.
real. It's
Mm.
real. So, they try to tell us, hey, go see a counselor or go do this, and that's fine. But when you have to look in a book, a world history book, I've taught world history, I've taught world civilization, and you're not in the book, they're telling you that you're not important. Nothing you've done. The White House that they live in was built by Black people.
By slave.
But majority of the things that are measured up in this world were built by Black people. But when you open up a book, it says that we are not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's
that
right.
is bothersome in so many ways. And even to the point that it's not that our history is whitewashed. It's like we've gotten tired of trying to prove ourselves in a society that we're not welcome. And the ones
That's
before
good.
us, right, have gotten tired, seriously. Like the ones before that, we have gotten tired of trying to prove that we're worthy. And it's definitely time for some youth to pick up that baton and run with it.
That's right.
That's real good. That's
Right.
real good. Well, look, man. Ooh, this was good. That's all I can tell you, dog. I didn't even know what time it was. This is good. Once again, we had a slate of questions. Didn't even get a chance to get to them.
No,
Yeah.
just general, just conversing and letting it flow always works. It never happens.
But
I mean, it
I
always
think,
happens.
yeah, I think that's amazing. Because our time is moving. But Alan, we want to give you the floor. And just sort of any comments, anything you want to say, you want to let the public know about your grandfather, his legacy, anything, we want to give you that space and that floor right now.
About your organization, about the documentary,
Absolutely.
because the thing about it is this is recorded, so it's on YouTube page. You can share it. You can share this with other organizations that you're a part of, so they can be educated on what's going on.
What I would say about my grandfather's legacy, my calling right now is to look at Selma in the eyes. I told my wife this the other day. I said, I'm looking Selma in the eyes to get the story straight with Selma first before I go to the nation. Because everything is indecent and in order. my grandfather contributions to the movement is second to none. Sometimes I get choked up when I think about him, because in my heart of hearts, I still wish he was here to see the work that, you know, his grandson and his grandsons and his family is doing to get things right with history. I love Black Wall Street. I love Rosewood. I'm a person that loves my Black history, and I'm a person that will fight to make sure that our kids know that, you know, we are great and marvelous people, and we always come back. It doesn't matter what's thrown at us. We always come back as a people. So this is why I'm so fired up about my grandfather, because I'm tired of the world. I'm tired of the nation covering up how important Black people is to America. You know, I celebrate Black History Month, but I think it's disrespectful to put our history in a month. We are American history. My organization, the Frederick D. Reese Foundation, I'm the co-founder of, and I'm the CEO of. We're a young foundation. Like my sister Candace would say, we're walking in the spirit of F.D. Reese. Look, I understand I can't fill my grandfather's shoes, but I can always make sure those shoes are very relevant and stay shiny and stay clean, and try to do the things that he would do if he was still living, or if he was still in my shoes, if he was still living in my shoes today. So those are the things that the Frederick D. Reese Foundation Incorporation's doing now. You know, you can go to fdreesefoundation.org and understand more. With Reese Enterprise, we have History on a Pair. We have a pair. A pair is a great way to put information out there and let people know who you are and what you're doing. So if you see my hat on right now, you can go to historyonapair.com and get you one. This shirt right here was done by my cousin Lucretia Dow. She's on my Facebook page, and, you know, another Black-owned business that I'm gonna support and I continue to support. But like I said, I don't have much to say. I just want to say, let's get our history right. I want to say to Selma, Alabama, stop letting people disrespect our history. Let's tell the truth. Let's stand together. And not only stand for our history, but let's show them that, look, we can stand as a people. We can run our government right. We can prosper as a community. We can build infrastructure. We can be leaders in every area, education, everything that we want to do. We can show the world, look what Selma's doing. If you look what Selma doing, you know, take notes. Let's stand and be leaders as we should be, that God has called Selma, Alabama to be. I always say, people look for Selma. When Selma do things, the nation do things. When Selma got their first Black mayor, the next election, the USA got their first Black president. Selma will always be relevant, and I love Selma through the depth of my heart. So continue to support us, the Reese family. I appreciate FD Reese Day. I'm going to be in Selma for that day, March the 15th. I love it. It's just the beginning. We're going to continue to rep the Dallas County Voters League. We're going to continue to rep the Selma Teachers Association. We're going to continue to speak and run our mouth. All we want to do, and no one going to do nothing to us, because we don't care. We're a different generation. We're going to move forward. I love you. I appreciate the time, and I'll speak with y'all later.
Thank you so much, Doc, brother. I know. Go ahead, bro. I was telling them thank you.
Definitely let us know what we can help to contribute to that day. That's definitely an important day. If we, you know what, you know, to be cool, but I don't know if we could probably set this up on that day and just kind of do like the same thing we're doing right now.
Oh yeah, I'm willing, man. Yeah.
And just be more out in, you know, in the open with it and kind of broadcast it and put it on our platform. Colin, what you think?
Yeah. I want to say this to you. After this Corona situation over, look, man, I love to come to your class.
That'll work. That'll definitely work.
Come to your class and talk to your students, man. You know.
I was gonna say I think it's a great idea. You're kind of talking to the person who's helping also set that up too, and so. Hey. Bro, Bosley, you know,
yes,
look, I've been here long enough to know all you gotta do is just say the word and we can make it.
That's it. That's it. Hey, whenever I hear, let's go. Let's go. I'm with it. Because that's instrumental. And that day alone should be an educational day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
To educate, not just to celebrate. A lot of times we celebrate more than we're educated. So let's celebrate a little bit, but let's educate as well.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
But man, we definitely appreciate your time, man. Super duper, man. As a history teacher, I love it. I'm gonna go do a little bit more research. Myself, just to get into it a little bit more. So man, we definitely gonna look into it. Most definitely. Appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely. Once again, everybody, we just want to remind you all to please continue to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. This may be the last Black History conversation, but this is not the last time you'll ever see Omega Chi, because we are moving. And so we thank all of you for sticking with us. This was listen, publicly shout out brother Reginald Glover for coming up with this concept. And
yes,
we stuck this thing through every Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, definitely. Every Tuesday and Thursday.
That's right. See it through. That's right.
Oh, definitely.
Right. And so listen, I appreciate everybody, all of our guests we've had leading up to this moment. Alan, thank you so much.
Man,
definitely
for being here as well. Bro Marshall, anything else?
Oh man. If you know anyone coming up, no Black History Month is, yes, Black History Month is over. But if you know anyone in the community that has a story, and we may pick this up later on throughout the year. We may do one a month, because that would just help educate you all in the community and help us be better as far as learning our history worldwide. If you know anyone that has a story that's factual, that aligns with everything that goes on, and they have and they need a platform to talk about it on, reach out to us. Reach out to us, because we know that there are stories that have not been told.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard 2-3 different people talk about each story. At some point, all of them aligned for that purpose of what was really going on. So there are stories that need to be told, and we have created a platform for them to express, talk. We want the raw. We want the raw evidence. Right. Like you just gave the raw. We want the raw. Like we don't want the baked and you put the icing on it and whatever. It's cool. Constance gave us the raw. Like she was cursing, she was doing everything, and I needed that, because that's what you need. Let express yourself. Get it off your chest, and you was able to do that tonight. However you felt about what was going on, you were able to do that, and we want more people. But it's gonna come to an end for a little while, because we're gonna regroup to figure out how we can make this better. We definitely,
and we want to rest too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too.
But this has been fulfilling. I'll be honest, I've been filled. Every Tuesday and Thursday has been something different. And this was the blessing that I never even knew that I needed in these conversations. And so I'm just blessed to even be a part of a fraternity that allowed us to have this platform to do this.
Most definitely.
And so if there be nothing else, we are going to end on a special note. And so thank you all so much again for tuning in with us, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
See you soon.
When the ruling was given in Montgomery, federal Judge Johnson gave that ruling. Said we had a right to march down Highway 80 and to be protected. And so then it was a great day. So then on that 21st day, we began a successful march. We left Selma, and 3 days we got to Montgomery that Wednesday evening. There's a long flatbed truck there out at St. Jude, we call it St. Jude Campground. And on that stage was performers, Harry Belafonte, Peter Paul Mary, Sammy Davis Jr., and others. to entertain us, because the next day we were to get up and then continue that march from St. Jude to the Capitol where Dr. King was to make that speech. We got up that day, the next morning at 9 o'clock, to form the front line of that march. To my left marched Jose Williams holding his daughter. I marched next to him. Mrs. King marched next to me. Dr. King marched next to her. Dr. Ralph Bunche, the first African-American Nobel Peace Prize winner, marched next to him. To his right marched Mrs. Abernathy. To her right marched her husband, Ralph Abernathy. To his right marched John Lewis, who today is a United States Congressman from Georgia. To his right marched A. Philip Randolph, who was he was over the Porters Union at that time, and of course he was one of the organizers of the 1963 March on Washington, where Dr. King made his famous speech, "I Have a Dream." And then to his right marched Rosa Parks. That's the front line of that march, moving down Dexter Avenue in Montgomery, on the way to the Capitol to hear Dr. King make that speech that day. I sat on that platform and looked out over that sea of humanity, and I had a feeling of great triumph and victory after having gone through all of the indignities, all of the sacrifice. And that all seemed worth it.